Welcome back. In today's episode, we sit down with Marc Mawhinney. He's going to discuss why being polarizing can be good and the better way to use Facebook.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Marc Mawhinney is on a mission to help coaches build stronger businesses. A lifelong entrepreneur, he achieves this with his podcast, Natural Born Coaches, his coaching programs, and with his popular Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle. He frequently makes media appearances and is a contributor to entrepreneur.com. You can learn more about Marc at naturalborncoaches.com. Marc, thank you so much for joining us today. I know the audience is going to get so much out of today's discussion. I just want to start and dive into your ebook. What a great book. I love it. The ABCs of a successful coaching business. You know, so many coaches out there struggle with trying to create success. They know what they're talking about, but they just can't seem to get their message across. And I just love the ideas that you had in your book. What prompted you to write that?
Well, first, was it $100 that I agreed to pay you to say that, or was it was $200?
It was $120, and I do have that on tape.
Yeah. Okay. The check's in the mail. What prompted me to write it? Well, I mean, the boring answer business-wise is it helps, of course, to have, an ebook like that as a lead magnet and to build your email list, and you want to help coaches and all that stuff. So, but really the reason that I wrote it, besides those things, I mean, that's a great, one of the great things is a lot of the same issues kept popping up in my sessions I work exclusively with coaches, and from my podcast, I've done almost 500 episodes, and a lot of the same issues were popping up even in my Facebook group I have 3,000 coaches in there. And I thought, wow, I'd love to have a reference that I could point them to answer it, because not being lazy, but then I don't have to do an hour conversation with a ton of people who approach me for advice on stuff if they're not clients, and that was a big part of it with the ebook. I said, I'm going to take the filter off, write exactly how I speak. I'm not going to pull any punches. It could offend some people, but I'd rather just put it out there and, say the things I wish I'd heard when I was a new coach. And that's really how it came about. So it is pretty unfiltered. There's a few things that people, when they were proofing it, I had some coaching friends read it and said, no, you might want to ease up on this one. I said, oh, no, we'll go ahead with it. And, boring's not good. I want to have it interesting. So that's a Cliff's Notes on it.
Yeah, you can't be everything for everyone. My team's always asking this, when are you going to be a little more aggressive in this area? I'm like, it might piss off some people. They're like, just go for it. You're like, yeah, you're right. I do need to piss off more people.
Well, and as the longer I've been in it, I've been more willing to polarize. So when I first started coaching, I was in that mushy middle where I was afraid to, like everybody, you want everyone to like you and all that stuff. And as time's gone, I haven't been as afraid to polarize now. I'm not getting into big debates, Trump versus Clinton or anything like that. I'm in Canada anyways, but we still hear a lot about it. But I'm not afraid to polarize when it comes to business, because I think that's what you have to do. You have to challenge your marketplace, and that gets them interested, gets them talking about you, and ultimately become clients and customers.
One thing I want to point out, even though your business is solely focused on coaches, the discussion that we're going to have today is absolutely cross-contextual to any sort of business. He's got some absolutely amazing advice in here. So if you're not a coach, stay tuned. You're going to really like what is going to come in the following 40 minutes. Let's talk about one of the first ones I came across, and that's don't concentrate on your competition.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Nowadays with social media, it looks like your competition's made 5 figures every morning before 9 o'clock. And they've also scaled a mountain and run 10 miles and, everything's perfect with them, right? So yeah, I mean, it's good to know what the marketplace is doing, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of people get really trapped. It's like running a race and they're looking in the next lane over at everything that their competition's doing, and then they're not focusing on their own race, and that's really tough to to do. So I'm all for market research and kind of having your pulse on the marketplace, finger on the pulse, I guess, but not overdoing it. I think that's dangerous.
What's one of the biggest challenges that your coaches face?
Well, I mean, that's part of it. What we just touched on is there's that great quote. I think it's Steve Furtick says, "Don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel." And I agree with that, because nowadays with social media, everybody's throwing their wins or perceived wins in everybody's face, right? And that can get really discouraging if you're a coach or any entrepreneur and you're trying to get going and you're thinking, man, it's so easy for everyone else. Look at everything they're doing and I'm not having those kind of results. And what I have to remind people is just remember, you're not seeing their behind the scenes. That may not be as rosy as they're making it out to be. And you can't get too hung up on that. Just, keep plugging away at your own stuff, and then you're going to get those results, and then you can shove them in everyone's faces.
I have some clients that are coaches. All my clients are entrepreneurs. But one of the things that I find is that the coaches undervalue what they're doing, and they try to compete in the marketplace based on rate.
Oh, yes, definitely. That's a big one. Yeah. Well, there's advice out there from some really smart people even saying, give free deep dive 2-hour, 3-hour marathon coaching sessions, and that's what you have to do. And you give all these free sessions and you knock people's socks off, and they're going to love the process and, everything that you did for them, that they're going to hire you and they're going to refer all their friends to you, which sounds great in theory. Unfortunately, I don't always see that happening a lot. So I'm all for that initial, whatever you want to call it, discovery session or strategy session or whatever. Mine are about half an hour tops. They're often 20 minutes to see if it's a fit to work together. And I'm all for sharing value in those conversations. They're not just sales pitches, but I'm not a big fan of that 2-3 hour free coaching session where you're giving away all your value and your experience and stuff. And I mean, look at you. You've been in the entrepreneur game, 16 years? Yep. And I know the rates that you charge. Can you imagine if you said, I'm going to start giving away 2 hours for free for any Tom, Dick, or Harry that comes into my world? I mean, that's just not smart business. And it's not good for the client either. They don't value it because they're not paying for it.
Yeah. It's one thing that I do. I do a 15-minute session free to anybody. My rates tend to be expensive or free. That's it. I don't play in the middle.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think it's tough for a lot of people because as coaches, what we're selling can't be easily put into a box and handed to people. So a good example is I have a twin brother, Matt, and he actually edits my podcast, him and his team. So he has a podcast editing company called Pod Assist. I'll get a plug out for them. And so what he does is very easy for people to get their heads wrapped around because somebody gives them their audio. They handle editing it, they handle uploading it, they handle show notes, and all that stuff, right? And it's easy for people to see that. But for what we're doing often as coaches, it's not as easy to hand it in a box with a bow on top and stuff. And people, that's what makes it a little bit tougher sell now. It's what we're doing, I think, is really, sounds corny, but can be magical for someone. It can be big impact. So I think that it's our job, our obligation, that we have to transfer that over to the client to let them know, hey, this is what we're doing. But it can be a little difficult to fit it onto a rate card or something on a website, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm all about execution, and one of the biggest things that get in the way of execution is distractions. Talk a little bit about eliminating distractions.
Yeah, I went through a big kick last year. I read the books, The One Thing, Gary Keller.
Great book.
Jay Papasan. I had Jay on my show, and that's what prompted me. And then I also read Essentialism, which is another book in a similar vein. And after reading those two books, I said, I got to change this, because I was the type with my iPhone and everything, had all the notifications coming in for Facebook, Twitter, blah, blah, blah. And you don't realize how much of an addiction that becomes. And you get that sort of dopamine rush hitting your head every time the notification comes on for new likes and all that. Yeah.
And people think they're being productive.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I got an extra like on my post.
Yeah.
Try going into the bank and saying, for the mortgage this month, I collected 133 likes on this post. Can I use this to pay, the mortgage? They're going to kind of laugh at you or kick you out. So I went on a big kick where I changed a lot of that. And full disclosure, I still have to do better with Facebook. Facebook's the main culprit for me, and email. I've been getting better with email. But with Facebook, where I've got a busy Facebook group and a lot going on there, it can be tempting to pop in and, make sure what's going on. But, I've brought some admin on to help with the Facebook group, so they kind of keep an eye on it, and they can, make sure spammers aren't filling up the wall of the group and all that stuff. And I'm getting there. I still have a little ways to go. Some people, only go on Facebook, once a day or something like that. I'm not there. I'm still popping in more because it is a big part of my business, but it's getting there.
Well, yeah, when you're running a group like that, they expect you to be there, and they want your content and your voice, your conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be in there every day. So, but I'm light years ahead of where I was, say, even 3 years ago.
Well, I might need some coaching from you because I'm getting ready to launch my LinkedIn and my Facebook group. I've got my admins set up, but I realized it took me a while because I know that was going to be a very big time commitment for me. So,
yeah, it's I'm a huge fan of Facebook groups. LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, but I'm not really a LinkedIn groups guy, to be honest. But it works. I've had clients it works great for, but I'm a huge fan of Facebook groups because it's been, as we're recording this, my group's a year old, and we've got about 3,000 members with zero paid advertising. And that's how I've been filling a lot of my coaching programs and one-on-one clients is directly from that group. So it's been a lot of work, but it's been worth it.
Obviously, we don't get anything off of Facebook, but if you're listening to this program and it's in 2016, this is definitely the way social media is going. And if you own a business and you want an audience that you're able to speak to and somewhat control as best you can control something in a Facebook environment, the group is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, and I just shameless plug, but I actually put a lot into this. I released a solo show recently with everything, all my tips from growing my Facebook group. The Coaching Jungle is the name of the group. So I guess if you want to throw it on the show notes page, or it's naturalborncoaches.com/470, because it was episode 470. And I shared as much as I could in 30 minutes there.
Great. Well, I know I'll be listening to that one.
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you. Well, let's talk about my favorite. Make your mess your message.
Oh, well, yeah, the good news is I've got a lot of mess. So I luckily was able to turn my, so you got to turn your shit into sugar.
Exactly. There you go. You just got an E. Congratulations.
Awesome. I feel like such a rebel because I'm like the least rebellious person ever. Like, I'm the furthest thing from a rebel, but hey, I'm a rebel. But yeah, it's interesting. When I first started coaching, I didn't share as much with my backstory and some of my mess. I had, about a decade of success in real estate where things were just going perfect, doubling revenues every year, and team was growing, and I grew it up to about 100 employees and agents under me and stuff like that. And then everything collapsed. I ended up going through 2 business closures in a span of just a few years after that. And I'm thinking, what the heck is going on after, my whole 20s from 21 to 30, everything was roses, right? And I'm thinking, what's going on? So when I started coaching years later, I didn't share as much of it, because you feel like, oh, you can't share that. It's a negative. But I've found that as I've opened up and shared more, it's become a huge positive, and I don't dwell on it. Woe is me. Things were so bad back then. I share enough but I don't share. I share everything that I went through in the lessons, but I don't make it. It's not a depressing story, And I think some people focus a little too much on the bad stuff. I turn it into the good stuff, that I learned from it. And I think it makes me a better coach too. I'm more empathetic, and I understand where people are going through, and to say, hey, I've gone belly up not once but twice, and it's okay if you've done that. It's not the end of the world, right?
Absolutely. Just keep moving.
Yes, exactly. KMF, Robin Sharma had that in one of his books for Keep Moving Forward. Great acronym, so KMF.
I love that. I did a interview with an adventure racer, Robin Benacasa, and I asked her, I said, when you're in the middle of a jungle and you don't know which way to go, what do? She goes, you just keep moving.
Yeah.
She goes, as further you go down a trail, doesn't even have to be the right trail, you start to see things from a different perspective. You see things down the road that you didn't see before because you weren't far enough down the road. And even if it's the wrong road, there'll be other exits. So I thought that was really interesting. Just keep moving. And I think so often people get stuck they're like, oh, I don't want to move. If I move, something bad might happen. Well, if you stay there, something bad's going to happen. It's called death, and it's coming.
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
Just keep moving. For the last 16 years, I've been driven by the question of why some people achieve amazing results and others don't. The answer? 90% of their success came from their psychology. So if 90% of their success comes down to their psychology, what was the one thing that enabled them to produce the results that others were not? Their ability to execute. Their ability to get things done. Now, we all know how to get things done, but some of us do it better than others. And some of us are not even coming close to tapping our potential. So if you're truly committed to tapping your potential and really becoming a peak performer and getting the results that you need, want, and desire, take your phone and text the word BE Summit. That stands for Business Execution Summit. One word, BE Summit, and text that to 41411. I'm going to send out some additional information on our upcoming event that will truly teach you the science of execution. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day. That concludes part 1 of our interview with Marc. Please tune in later this week for part 2.